What's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 101. He's a 30-plus year real estate industry veteran. He's held several positions in management, including founder and partner of Sotheby's International Realty in Canada, manager at Bosley Real Estate, the largest and oldest independent brokerage in Ontario, and president and broker of record at Property.ca Realty, where he grew the agent count from 75 to over 240 agents in just 18 months. And became one of the top brokerages in the city, closing over $800 million in transactions. Previously, he was director at large and president of the Toronto Real Estate Board from 2013 to 2017, and director at large of the Ontario Real Estate Association. He's an advocate of technology in the real estate industry and has joined Key, a unique co-equity real estate company designed to help more people achieve homeownership years earlier and to provide agents with a new income stream. This week on the Mindshare Podcast, I am joined by Mark McLean. Mark, what is up, my man? Welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
Ta-da! Okay, well, David, I just want to say that, my only ask in this hour and change that we're here is that you could just show a little bit more energy, okay? Like, I don't know, maybe you woke up on the wrong side of the bed or something like that. But if you wouldn't mind just picking it up a tiny bit, that would be great.
I will do my best, my man. I do apologize for the subtle introduction and everything else, but
thanks. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's great. I'm looking forward to diving right in.
Absolutely, man, and I'm excited to get into that new adventure that you're part of now, because I know we were talking before we got on air, and you were sharing a whole bunch of stuff, and of course, myself and the team, we did a ton of digging on this thing just before that to just really understand what this thing's all about, and I'm excited to just let you talk more about that, because it does seem very interesting. And I had said to you that sort of my ears perked up and went, I didn't realize that was kind of a problem, but anyways, we'll get into that stuff. What I want to do though is I want to start off a little bit prior to that and kind of get people maybe up to speed with where you're at these days, kind of maybe up to speed with what you've done here. But I want to dive in and I want to, sort of get to some just good value add for everybody. So tell me, right off the hop, man, just looking at where we're at, it has been a crazy time in this industry. It's been a crazy time in our world over the past 8 months. What do you think is the biggest thing that we've learned as an industry in real estate, sort of since COVID all, landed on us back in March?
So, obviously thinking a lot about that and looking at the numbers and all that, but more importantly, right now, today, I would guess that a majority of the agents that we have out there that are working on the street right now have never lived through a recession. If they've been in the business for, let's say 10 years or more, it has been an up market. I buy a house and I sell it, 6 months later and I make, $50,000. It's only been like that. And so what you really get out of, things like recessions, and this is, has a lot of, at least those 2 months that we had a lot of feeling like a recession. It was really slowing down, and it made agents have to really sort of adjust on the spot and to try and work outside their comfort zone to try and think, how do I drum up business when no one wants to sell, when no one wants to buy? And that is, if you can get through that, that's a remarkable thing. And so I actually I listened to a podcast which was called the Pandemic Survival Guide.
Oh yeah.
And the number one was, just, keep working. But number two, be around for the rebound, which means do everything in your power to sort of stick it out so that when it does come back, you're ready to pick up on that. And so that's really, I think, a remarkable kind of lesson that we all need to learn is in our day-to-day business. And, for me, I'm just so enthusiastic about our industry. It's given me so much. And I really want to see it succeed. I want to see our runway just be as long as possible, because there are elements that are out there that are just trying to distract us, that are, trying to cut us out of the equation, trying to upend our industry. And so, what do we do as an organization, as a group of individuals that can help us, just keep our runway going and just and really maybe weed out the bad guys, but also make the new guys or anybody really successful if they choose to go that way.
I like what you said there when you brought up that other podcast there. That survival guide. I mean, that was something that I had myself been preaching since the day this thing landed. And a lot of folks, I mean, we were doing, everybody was getting zoomed out, right? We're doing all sorts of Zooms. Everybody was hosting all sorts of things. And I mean, I know I've brought this up, so forgive me for everybody who's like a diehard podcast listener, Mindshare podcast listener. I love you. But I have said this a lot of times where, there was one particular meeting that I took part in. And we were talking about what can we do right now? And this was like off the heels of like the big announcement, right? And I had said, hey, stay connected, like reach out to people and talk to people. And I had one guy specific, I could still see him in my head. He turns, he's like, "That, no, man." He's like, "What kind of advice is that?" He's like, "I don't want to make phone calls to my database right now. This is crazy. I can't talk real estate." And I went, whoa, I didn't tell you to talk real estate.
Yeah.
I didn't say call people and talk about real estate.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the comment about like staying engaged, right? Like having even that runway that, as this thing starts to settle down a little bit and as we start to find our groove again, that you're not re-engaging with people, but you've always remained engaged.
100%.
And that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, we talked about this too. Like, for me, I firmly believe that, we should all be playing the long game. That means, doing things.
Dude, isn't that what real estate's all about? Sorry, isn't that it? Like,
yeah,
right?
It should be like that. And I think this is the failure for a lot of people that, that get into the business. I literally talked to, hundreds of agents who said, "Man, this is a really hard job." I think people get into it thinking, "Oh, it's going to be really easy." And, I'm a waiter today, but I'll be driving a Mercedes-Benz next week. And it's not like that. It's freaking hard work. And so, when you send out flyers or whatever, and you don't get any response in the first one, how many people just drop off and they say, "Forget it, I'm never going to do that again." And it's those guys that consistently do it. They consistently do it. It's just name recognition. That guy's in my neighborhood. That guy's in my neighborhood. He's got valuable content. He's doing stuff. And it's all about playing the long game. And I think that, when you do any of that sort of stuff, whether it's social media or whether it's a flyer or a newsletter or whatever it is, it boils right down to consistency and always doing it. And the stuff that we're doing, today may not pay off for 5 years. And the stuff that we do tomorrow isn't going to pay off for 5 years plus a day, right? Like you got to work that way. And along the way, a nugget drops out from the ceiling and you make some money, and that's great. But you're building, a business that is going to carry you for 20 years, hopefully.
I just want to put a disclaimer in here that he was not paid to use the word consistency. He did that automatically. He's been at the game for 30 plus years. He gets it. So for everybody else, you've heard me preach it every single day to you.
It's crazy.
And I'm going to consistently say it again. Consistent, right?
Yeah.
But it's so true, man. I mean, we expect so much. We expect to get into this business. And I talked about this last week on my solo episode 100, where, we talked about the reason that people get in the game is for freedom and flexibility. And that there's going to be this massive change in the way we do things every day, that, life is going to get easier and I'm going to have the benzo and all this other stuff so quickly.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's really more about the relationships you build and how consistently you can be out there connecting with people and what I like to call building mindshare with people.
100%.
That's where the success comes from, right?
Yeah, for sure. And, in our marketplace, we have, buyers and renters and, we're all searching for buyers.
Yeah.
Right. All want that because that's the home run, right? On every phone call that says, "Yeah, I'm buying or selling," that's a home run. And then the renters, people are like, "Well, I need to pay the bills. And so I'm going to do rentals." At least, when they're early in their career, they're doing rentals because they need to pay the bills. And, when I was at Property, I had a guy there that did, 250 rentals in a year, which is
wow,
insane. But, was made a great living and it was totally fine. But, that's the work that's involved. And I think the other part of it is that, people don't realize, I think they think too easily that our business is, I can do an hour's worth of work here. I can do an hour's worth of work there. But, consistently, You see the guys who come in the morning. A perfect example, when I was at Bosley, my downtown office, all my top producers were never there. But at the uptown office, all the top producers were always there. And they would come in 8:30 in the morning, and they would start hammering the phones. They would start doing their mailers. They'd get listings organized. And their days were 10 to 12-hour days. And it's no surprise that they made millions of dollars,
that.
And so, how do you go into an industry and trick yourself into thinking, hey, I can work 2-3 hours a day and I can make, $200,000-$300,000. I don't know.
It doesn't work like that. And I mean, here, even looking at the way the market's been over these past 8 months, and we talked at first, it sort of felt like we were walking in this recession, and all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, everybody's pants are on fire right now. And look, I say everybody, there might be people listening that are like, well, I'm not really having the best time right now. Okay, cool. There's a lot we can dig into and dive into to understand why you didn't. But on the big picture of it, when we look at how hot it's been and we look at the fact that there's so many people smashing their goals right now, do we see this market being able to sustain itself for another 12 months like this? No matter what, like, do we think it's possible? This is crazy.
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question. And quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know if anyone really knows the answers. I mean, what we're seeing, at least.
If they do, send them our way.
So yeah, right. I want to know who they are. But I think what we're seeing is, the market, especially in the condo market, having really struggling. We see that the Airbnb component coming on stream, all those units coming out, driving the prices down. And you can see that is, that's affecting us right now. Will it affect us 3 years from now, 4 years from now? I don't think so. I mean, that's my gut says no, but you just never know. And there are people out there who are lining up to buy units that haven't been built. And so why are they doing that? Because they think, well, this is pandemic, it's not going to last forever. And when these units are built, I'm going to be able to get top rents again. So obviously they have some faith in the unit, in the business as well. But I think short term, survive, be around for the rebound. This is the best advice you can get.
Yeah. And I think when we've watched, real estate climb over these past 100 years, decade over decade, we're still up. I mean, it's always just an upward trajectory, right? So it's more of those blips in the market and in the radar and in a year and in a few months that we need to be prepared for. They're not, look, the up is not going to last forever and the down is not going to last forever, right? Can we be consistent enough to sustain it all? So I'm curious then, what factors or what, angles do you think agents should be focused on right now to continue to grow their business?
Yes, I think that, one of the things I always stressed when I was running offices is it was really important for you to understand sort of like the big picture, what's going on in the world, and then sort of dive down to it. How does what's going on in China going to affect what's happening in our market? Because you can draw those correlations, right? And what we're seeing right now, why aren't people buying, or why isn't the condo market exploding? Is because people aren't coming into the city, right? They're terrified of the city, or they just can't come into the city because they're on lockdown wherever they are. That's not going to last forever. That will come back. And by the way, when you think about any past recession, what you notice, what is a clear indication is that one of the first segments of the market to come back is the lower end. It starts to come back, in spades. And so I think we have to keep an eye on that lower end of the market, that $500,000-$600,000 market, to see where it's going. That's one of the things. So, having a really good understanding of what's going on, reaching out to people, as you say, not talking about real estate, just, hey, how are you doing? Are you surviving? What's going on? And just showing that you care. I mean, this is a relationship business at the end of the day, and we can't fail to recognize that. We've got to be consistent in that. And for me, I'm just trying to, talk to agents about what I'm doing and get them sort of, a lot of them are maybe unsure or don't really quite get it, but just educate. So stay educated on everything that's going on, and be prepared. Like, keep doing your marketing, which is tricky when when you're not making any money, right? So it's hard to spend money when you're not bringing it in. But you can switch to online. You can do a lot of this stuff. And I talk to agents who are just doing like tons of online stuff. But it is that consistency, and it's name recognition. It's being an expert in your field. It's being, I'm not 100% sure if chasing business is the right answer either. Like, working with someone who says, well, I don't want to live in Toronto. I want to live in Windsor, and driving out to Windsor, I don't think that's really the best use of time. I would much rather, find the best agent in Windsor and partner with them and let them do all the heavy lifting. But, that's me. Some people have a lot of time on their hands. They don't mind doing that, I guess. But I think, you just staying involved, staying front and center, letting people know that you're around. And if you can't,
we call that building mindshare, Mark.
Yeah, man. And really, you should be just, you can go to the dollar store and buy a pack of, 10 cards for $2, right? And spend your day just dropping notes off to people. Hey, how you doing? Just thinking of you, or whatever. I actually remember a guy who I had recommended. He worked in a different market, and he followed me on Instagram, and he knew that I had a passion for sailing. And so he was at a secondhand bookstore, and he found an old book on sailing, like it was a pretty crappy book, and he sent it to me and just said, "Hey, I was just thinking of you, and I know you're a big sailor, so I sent you this book."
That's an old trick for sure, but it's
Great.
I mean, look, it's not like we're not even naive to it, yet we still appreciate it.
Totally, I totally appreciate.
Yeah, it's
that.
cool, man. First, side note, you're nuts, man. I saw that stuff on Insta about sailing and like letting the wind, power the boat. Look. Yeah. I did it once. I was in Jamaica.
A great equalizer.
I love to ride my motorcycle. As you know, I went to Tofino on the bike this year. I've been out to Dawson City and Yukon. I mean, the bike is my livelihood. I have a need for speed. So put me with something in an engine and I'm good. We did a Hobie Cat, me and my wife in Jamaica. I was like 100 yards from the shore and I was freaking the what out. I'm like, this thing is just being powered by the wind. I could go out that way and sharks could eat me. I'm done with this whole thing. But anyhow, sidebar on that.
I love sailing, and I've had the rare opportunity to be part of a Canadian sort of sailing elite. I've been able to sail in England and Japan and San Francisco
on those big sailboats.
No, on little dinghies, actually.
Oh, man.
I had quite a career, but now I'm just happy to sail my little racing boat. So.
Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. But bringing us back to this then, I want to, you mentioned about don't drive over here. Maybe you got too much time on your hands. I say to everybody, we all know how overwhelmed we are. We all know the limited amount of time that we have to get things done. And I really want to encourage everyone, manage time accordingly. Add a line item for everything you do, everything you need to do. And if you're like, well, what do I need to do? Start to take a pen, put it on a piece of paper, and start to write down all of the tasks that you normally do. Start to look at the things that you have to do for personal. Write that stuff down. Take the personal, block it first, then go back and get to the business stuff. You need to manage time if you want to, like Mark just said, have that success, get to that next level, be that person who's a top producing realtor. Now,
I would also add, David, sorry.
Go for it.
One of the things that I've always done as put a 5-year plan. And so I'll show you that I keep a journal, which is just a book that I buy, and every day I write in it, and it's got like tons of stuff, always that I just keep little knickknacks or whatever. But I always write in, what's my 5-year plan? And since I've been doing that sort of for the last 20 some odd years, I'm always, 2 to 3 years ahead on my 5-year plan. I don't know why. I think it's just because I write it down.
Yeah.
Top of my head.
Listen, so, I live my life off of my CRM, which is, mobile, and I can access it anywhere I want. That being said, I don't go anywhere without one of these things because I believe that much the same, right? And as you see me do one of these, I'm taking my notes because there's so much that we can learn. And the other thing too, is this is what we call a brain dump. And this is something that I like to do when we're doing trainings on the stage is, because we're making everybody drink through a big fat fire hose, right? Like the whole time. So it's like, stop. You got 60 seconds, brain dump. Everything that you just learned, whatever you can remember, clear some space up there and get back at it. Because we have those off the whim thoughts. I mean, listen, everybody, we know you're taking a shower and all of a sudden the most genius thought comes in. You start scrambling, like, where can I write this thing down? It's the same type of thing in life, right? Like when you got that moment, write it down. So I totally agree with you on that. But I want to circle back to something here that you said of, continue your marketing.
Yeah.
And then we talk about the marketing budget, and there are, it's tough to put money out there when we're scared of what type of ROI we might get, or can we continue to afford it? Now, the learning moment on this is to everybody is don't go over budget, right? And figure out your budget. There's more finite stuff to that, and we can figure that out together if you want to. But the idea here is don't go over budget, because then that long-term consistency, you cannot sustain it. You end up driving yourself nuts.
Yeah.
that's the money part. But then you mentioned that. So what some people have done is they'll go online to try to bring the budget down.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're an advocate for technology. I myself certainly am as well. That being said, I want to talk about that because there's a misconception, I think, with the industry that by taking my world online, I can reduce my cost and have more success. And I know that's not exactly how you said it. And that's not necessarily what you mean. Because again, I know being in the business 30 plus years, you know where this thing comes from. You already said it as relationships. That said, as we both believe in tech,
Yep.
but I like to take this position of like clarifying things for people. I want to kind of dig into that for a moment, a little deeper and say, are we really reducing costs by going online? So I'm curious, being in the business as long as you have and being the advocate, first, where do agents see most of their business from? People they know or people they don't know?
Well, I think for probably people they know, but because they get to know them, and that's why video, for instance, is so good because you get to understand the person's idiosyncrasies or their movements or how they talk with their hands and all that sort of stuff.
I don't talk with my hands.
Right, not at all. But you get to know them before you know them, right? But what I would say about online is that we go online to go offline.
I like that. I like
try
that.
and connect with people, as many people as we can, and then we try and get them offline. So for me, when I'm trying to connect with agents, I'm following them on Instagram, and then I drop comments every once in a while. I mean, it's a very kind of thought out mechanism that I use. So follow them, comment every once in a while, like their posts, and then reach out to them. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in grabbing a coffee? And that has had unbelievable response.
Okay, love the spin, and thank you for clarifying that. And what's really important for everybody to understand is much the same there. It was I love the way you said that. Go online to go offline.
Yeah.
And what I took away from that is essentially so through the organic stuff that I do, which means that I am involved in social media. I am engaging with people's comments and their posts, and I'm liking stuff. It's not that I've just spent money to run Facebook ads or SEO.
Yeah. And have fun too, right? Like my last two posts, I utilized a TikTok platform and then posted on Instagram.
I saw that.
I had more likes than think I've ever had, which was great. So, and I had fun. And luckily I have a 11-year-old daughter who knows everything about TikTok. So I'm like, okay, Penny, this is what I want to do. And she's like, okay, great. Let's tape it. And then she does all the work. So she's my social media manager.
See, personally, I haven't been able to get into it. Like I've got it. It's very addictive to look at TikTok. But I find that all that stuff you did, I find like it takes a ton of work to do, and talk about the amount of time involved. That's where I've sort of personally stayed away. Now, I will say that my buddy, James Lewis, did just mention to us the other day, James, just private chatted the other day and said he did actually just do a deal specifically from a TikTok post. So look, I am not saying to everybody you got to go take over the world on TikTok because you're going to see all sorts of business. Right. But he is amazing with his social media. He's very consistent with his social media. He's also very involved with his social media, and that's where the ROI comes from. And I guess that's kind of the bottom line point that I'm trying to make here is, when we look at the world of online lead generation, we look at the world of Google SEO, and we look at the world of Facebook ads, there's this sort of predetermined notion from our industry that if we go spend money over there, we're going to make a lot of business. We're going to do a lot of business, pardon me. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I speak to a lot of agents every single day. I work with a lot of agents, and there are people having success with it. And I'm not saying that it doesn't work. Yeah. But when we go back to this idea of budgeting, it's important to recognize that this stuff, it's not cheap. Yeah. It's not necessarily bringing your budget down. And we still need to support our efforts with a lot of the organic that you just mentioned as well.
By the way, the reason why they're making their online leads work is because they have a process in place.
Thank you.
Which is they respond really fast, and then they do follow up, and they engage in that person, because it's very easy to get an online lead in your mailbox and let it sit there for a week or two and then come back to it, and that person's long gone. So that's part one of it. And I think also the thing with coaches, and here's what I think about anyone that is trying to help an agent, is that if you said to an agent, you give me $10,000 over the course of the year. You give me $10,000 and I guarantee if you just do everything I tell you, you will make $100,000. The most of them just say, no, I'm not interested. I don't like, I'm not willing to take that. And so we have to get through that. And I think that's one of the hardest barriers. Obviously the good guys get it and they have the money, whatever, but they get it. And they're like, yeah, I'm all on board. If you're going to help me make $100,000, like, well, sign me up, man. I want to do that. And it's everybody else that's just going to struggle. So, I think the value that coaches bring to the equation is remarkable. And we should always, I always used to recommend, to my agents, get a coach. Mm-hmm. Are you struggling? Get a coach, man. And they'll teach you how to run your business and you will do better as a result.
Thank you for that. Very appreciative on that. And I would say, I mean, look, naturally I'm going to say, I concur. But the thing being, it's
true, 100% true.
But look, it's like anything in life, right?
Yeah.
We've sat down at conferences. We've had lunch together. I remember sitting in Blue Mountain, last year or 2 years ago, and we were talking about that new truck that old new truck that you got. And I mean, little things like that, but little convos like that, all of a sudden, they start to go off to a different direction, and you can take something of value away from that conversation and say, look, I just learned something.
Yeah.
And to that, when you can have people on your side and you can have folks that you can really lean on to, help guide the way. I mean, look, I am very, very, very cognizant of not using the word guarantee. And if I use it, I am 100 million% going to stand behind it. That said, I try not to use it because I don't believe there's any guarantees in life. I mean, there's no guarantee of tomorrow, right? Yeah. But one thing we know, if we work hard, we can get close, a hell of a lot closer to achieving what we ultimately want to achieve, right? Now, speaking of getting together and checking out your socials and all that, and I mean, just you're a wicked cool dude. Again, your stuff with the game and the industry itself. You actually post, you actually comment, you actually let people in. I mean, TikTok. Like, to anybody that tells me, oh, I don't know any of this stuff, this guy 30 plus years, TikTok, right? Yeah. And I commend you for it. I don't say that in any negative tone. Yeah. I'm curious, what has and I guess you sort of shared that, but what has your embrace of technology, yours personally, done to grow you as a brand and even the brands that you're associated with?
So, I think that, the world is changing. I look at it sort of big picture. The world is changing so fast, and it's actually the speed of which it's changing is even faster. And just to roll my car into it, my old, 20-year-old Defender, my kids jump in it for the first time and they're like, how do you roll the windows down? And I'm like, you see that thing there? You turn it. And they're like, what? That's crazy. So, that, I mean, it just cracks me up. Right. So, or that, when they run to the passenger door, they're like, Dad, open the door. I'm like, yeah, I have to get in and
lean across.
Up, right. so this is,
I remember it was a smoking hot day. We were sitting outside on the patio and you were like, yeah, I just rolled in. I'm like, you said something about the truck and then you said no air conditioning. I thought, what?
No air conditioning. Right. Or on the dashboard, I actually have this little thing that you lift up and it's a cigarette ashtray. Right. So my daughter lifts it up. Well, what's this for? I was like, this is an ashtray for a car. They're like, what? Anyway, it's hilarious. But, our world is changing so fast. And so if you, and that, we've seen so many things with Facebook and LinkedIn and Google and blah, I mean, it just goes on, the list goes on and on and on and on. And for a lot of people, they dip their toes in, they try it, they see it, they get used to it, all that. But that technology is moving so quickly. And how does adoption, like something like TikTok, how does it go from just launching to having 1 billion users so quickly? It's just, it's madness. And one of the things that I look at is, how are the huge players, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, how are they going to impact the real estate industry? I think that's, that is something that's going to happen. And, whether or not we like it or not, I mean, Amazon invested in doorbells. And from there, they said they built their Alexa or whatever, which then they partnered with the builder and said, we're going to make these homes very much Alexa friendly. And then now they're actually building houses. So do you see what I mean? Like, things are going to happen. When are they going to start selling houses? That's going to happen, right?
It's scary. It's scary stuff. And
scary stuff. Super scary.
Yeah, man. And it comes back to, okay, Okay.
Yeah.
So how does an agent remain relevant in the face of
Right.
all of this?
Yeah. So, and it's a great question. And I think iBuyers is a perfect example of this because we've all been following the iBuyer thing in the United States thinking, oh, this will never work. Right. But what it says to me is, so my mom has a place in Florida and, God forbid something ever happened to her. I'm not going to go down to Florida, hire an agent, staged, clean, do all that sort of stuff and wait for it to be sold and then, negotiate with the agent. I'm just going to call somebody who's willing to give me money for it right away. Right. So if I know that, what that is clearly an indication that what people want is like they want to have no problems. They want to have a very, very simple transaction and they're willing to pay for it. That's my lesson. If you can just deliver that kind of level of service to somebody to say, here's the keys to a hotel room. I know what you want. Let me add it. And it's going to cost you 14% or whatever, some crazy number. But when you come back, the house will be sold, you'll be packed up and you'll be moving in your new house. If we could deliver that level of service, I think our industry will be fine. But we do have to sort of, we have to follow that, that technology. How is it going to live us? And so what we saw in the United States were people who are saying, you want to sell your house, I get it. Let's bring in all the iBuyers. Let's bring them in, see what they have to say. We'll line them up on a table, and then let me show you what my package looks like. So here's 5 piles. This is iBuyer 1, iBuyer 2, 3, 4, and then here's my pile. And then let's show this is the level of service I'm going to get. This is how much I think that you could net out of it. And so people are actually, there are a couple of guys in the States that are actually using this in their daily discussions with potential sellers. I think that's clearly a pretty great move, and so and that's what we're trying to do. We're saying to the agent community, hey man, let's stand on the shoulders of giants. Let's mobilize this 50,000-60,000 person army to help feed our funnel, and let's pay them to do that. So I think that at the end of the day, it is about trying to understand where the market is going. Gretzky is a perfect example of that. Why was he such a great hockey player? It wasn't because he knew where the puck was; he knew where it was going. Right. So trying to understand where the puck is going is going to make you a rock star agent.
Love it. Great words. And I mean, you obviously specifically focus so heavily on the sales side of this business for so many years. It's some great advice. And I would agree with you, try to look ahead to where it's at. I love the comment about service, making it easy. And I think that, again, as we talk about all this online stuff, it's not that I'm saying to you, don't embrace it. I mean, anybody that follows me, hell, we're online right now. And if you're not watching us live, you're listening to this on iTunes or whatever any platform out there. Again, we're online. If you watch the social media, we're online. That said, to the comment of take your go online to go offline. I loved what you said there, Mark. I think that's the biggest takeaway when we talk about this whole technology thing is to understand you can embrace it. Understand that it may not be the most inexpensive option. Understand that both Mark and I have just said to you, it's got to be supported. What else are you doing? And the reality is this is still a belly-to-belly business. So if you want to continue to win in this business, in the face of an iBuyer, in the face of any of the other technology that's out there, the best thing you could possibly, hell, in the face of your competitor who seems to be running these massive ad campaigns online that you're like, oh my God, everywhere I turn, I see her, I seen him.
Yeah.
The way to win is to continue to build the relationship, be consistent about that with your audience. And now you're going to form this barrier around your contact list that says they can see all the ads they want. They're still coming back this way.
Yeah, because I'm great at returning their calls. A perfect example is I have a place in the East in Prince Edward County, and the agent that sold it to me, keeps sending me stuff in the mail. And so when it came time to sell a piece, I called him up and he came and looked and it was great. And I signed the listing, documents and all that sort of stuff. And then he ghosted on me. Like I just never heard from him.
What happened? You don't know?
And so I actually, after about 3 weeks, I was like, what the F is going on?
Yeah.
And so I called him and I said, hey, if we're going to do business together, because I'm an agent, so I'm like a broker, so I don't care. I'm not going to hurt him. I said, if we're going to do business together, you need to talk to me every week at the minimum. And he was like, sorry, it's busy, but and I said, but I'm your customer and I'm important. And so you need to do that. And so, I learned this lesson, many, many years ago, very, very early in my career, where I sold a house to a young lady, and 3 years later, she sold it and used another agent. And I bumped into her in the street. Why didn't you call me?
Yeah. What'd she say?
Sold me that house. You never talk to me again. I was like, right.
Okay. Okay. But great lesson, man. Communication.
I only learned that
how
3
important
times.
it is to communicate.
So yeah.
Good lessons there. And I love the fact that you brought up the mail, because the mail generated a opportunity. And I want to remind everybody that mail still has a major place in our world. Guys, remember, guys and gals, everybody, remember, mail is the only form of your marketing that actually shows up to the person's home. Therefore, it is the only form of your marketing that's building a relationship with the person's home. Now, you might go, yeah, but I'm going to build a relationship with the person. But when I think about my home, if you are building a relationship with my home, I'm going to naturally begin to think about you. That's what we call positive mind share. And now you have the opportunity for more market share. Now, speaking of market share, obviously everything we do out there is all about how we can develop more income. How can we make more? How can we help people get into more homes? And, that's what we get up every day in life to do. And you've embarked on a new adventure called Key Living. And as I understand it, this is an opportunity for people to get into home ownership in a much easier way. It's also an opportunity for agents to generate more income. Yeah. So please, can you share more about this? Tell us more about it. How can agents leverage this tool? How can, homeowners maybe have a side hustle? I don't know, but how do people use this to add to their asset column? What is this all about?
Yeah, so we touched on this earlier, is that right now today there are kind of two markets. There's the buyer seller market, and then there's the renter market. And I would say that there are a lot of agents that do rentals for one thing. Well, two things actually. Number one is that they just have a nice steady kind of income stream because they're doing tons of rentals. But the other thing is that there's a giant hope that down the road they're turning into buyers. So probably not a bad kind of thought process that goes into it, provided that every 6 months you're talking to the tenant, how's it going, where you at, blah, 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 and going through that consistency. But my guess is that once you lease a place to a person, you're never going to hear from them again, because what's happening in the market, and again, it's Gretzky, follow where things are going to go. And take away the fact that we're living in a pandemic and things are all upside down, but that more people are coming demographically, more people are coming into city cores. They're not building enough places to, they won't be building enough places for people to live. Prices are going up. They're going to take more people out of the market. And so we've got to have to do two things. Number one is we've got to build an opportunity for people to get into the market and get on that first rung of the property ladder in an easier way. And we have to prevent people from leaving the city, right? I'm really worried about this kind of like hollowing out of the city, where the people that need to be here the most, the people that are, frontline workers, nurses, teachers, like all those people, they need to be in the core. They cannot afford to be in a situation where in order to own, they have to live 2 hours outside the city. I think that's just, that's madness. And when I was TREB president, I used to go onto the radio and TV and talk about, well, my two major messages were, use a realtor, duh. Then,
no, you don't say.
Yeah. And second was buy a home, because buying a home was the quickest way to build equity for retirement. But what we knew about people who owned homes were that they were healthier, they were happier, their children were better educated. There were all these benefits that came out of home ownership. And so what I would say is, when the person would say, well, what if I can't buy that, that detached house, in Leslieville or wherever, I'd say you get in your car and you drive till you qualify. Meaning you keep driving outside the city until your money will actually get you something. And in theory, great idea. But if there was anything I could take back, it would be that, because what's happening now, you get people driving in for an hour and a half every day. And by the time they're here, their nerves are frazzled. And when they go home the other way, their first 2 hours, their first hour at home is not their best hour at home. And so there's a lot of pressures that come under that. And then we've also got a situation where, people are living in cramped quarters because they need to be close to work, because they don't have a car, or, and now the pandemic has even driven that home, because what do you want to do? Do you want to spend more time in your car, to get to work because you're in the service industry? Or do you want to live in a condo that's super crowded? Like, there's so many things that are going on in this. And so, when we looked at this problem, and one of our founders lived and breathed in this condominium kind of world, but it was in the frame of being an investor in companies, late stage venture capital kind of business. And what he saw was, there are so many problems within the condominium world, in that, from the moment you decide that you want to buy a place until the time that you deliver it, there are so many steps and so many costs that go into it that actually are needless, but also drive up the cost of the project. And so that's why we're seeing condos coming out at $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a square foot, when they don't really need to be like that. You can actually redefine or rejig the whole model, and you can't just fix one thing. You actually have to turn the whole model upside down, shake it loose, and rebuild it. And so
tell us more about that, because I mean, I would say I'm beside myself on the fact that people go and throw down so much coin, and you get it from a proximity and a commute and everything else. There's a ton of logic to it. But the fact that I'm spending $1 million to buy a shoebox with a kitchen, a bathroom, a living room, a dining room, a bedroom, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's
crazy.
Wild. It's wild.
So what we did is we said, look, if we had the opportunity to kind of rewrite how condos are built and delivered, and how they're purchased, and how the whole mechanism works, we could actually really make an incredible difference. And so, very audacious moonshot in a lot of ways. But we've been working at it for almost 2 years. Our team has grown from 3. I think I'm employee number 2. We've grown from 3 to 17. We have done lots of money raises. We are well on our way. We've engaged with government relations and tax attorneys. Our model's been tested 1 million times till Tuesday, and we're actually delivering something that's going to be I think really groundbreaking. So here you have a situation where if I can't buy, then I'm left with renting. And then there are agents out there who say, you know what, I'm not interested in renting, and they pass you on to somebody else. And then hopefully that person is good and does their job. But what if I said there's a third option? And that's what key is. We have all the benefits of home ownership, in that what we're going to deliver to you is that pride that comes with owning, that tenancy for life, and that equity stake. And then we're going to mix that with the freedom and flexibility of renting, which is very little money to spend, no buy-sell costs, and you can leave at any time. So if you could do that, you've actually kind of created something that is really unusual. So how do we do that? So what we do is you
took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, there you go. We raise hundreds of millions of dollars through big institutions like pension funds, wealth sovereign funds, endowment funds, big insurance companies. We call this long-term capital. It's money that they want to park for a really long time, 10, 20, 30 years. And if you think about pension funds, they're not interested in investing in the condo market, because a builder builds a place over 3 or 4 years and then sells it and moves on. That's not long enough. And so long-term capital is interested in having something that's 20, 30 years. Well, the only way you can do that is by basically owning the building for a really long time, almost like a rental, but be able to use the leverage that money to get more money from the bank. So get nice, be able to borrow from that. And then what we do is we sell condo units to individuals for just 2.5% of the purchase price. So you can go into a building, say, yep, I want that unit. It's a $500,000 unit. Here's $12,500. Now you own 2.5% of that whole of that unit. And so that's the kind of co-equity model. Now, what I would say to you, because it sounds it's great. And
hold on, I'm going to ask a quick question. Forgive me. And I know I asked this off air before, but I just want to reiterate, because it's the first thing that just again comes back to mind. Yeah. Do I get title?
Yeah, so you share title with us. And the reason you do that is that that now is your primary residence, and any money that you make is tax-free, right? So,
and upon the cash out, I've got my 2.5% equity stake.
Yeah. So if the market doubles, then your 2.5 doubles. Right. But it also gives you, but by the way, and the monthly payment that you make is geared to market rent for a similar unit. So if you're on the 20th floor and you're in a 1-bedroom and you're paying $2,000 a month, under our model, it would be, let's call it $1,950. And it would be, and that would be your monthly payment. But we would take $50 of that, and we'd actually put it into more equity every month. So if you did nothing, and the market did completely dead even, over the course of the year, you'd make $600. if the market was just going up by a few, couple percentage points every month, then that $50 every month would compound. So it could go up, $700-800. And by the way, you could just withdraw it at the end of the year. That's your money. So there's a lot of flexibility.
So forgive me. I put down 2.5%. I've got a 2.5% equity stake in this unit in a building that you guys own.
Yeah.
I'm able to, I get a $50 cash back per month kind of thing.
That goes to equity. Yeah. Builds equity.
Right. So I can either cash out on that part of it.
Yep.
How long is my initial 2.5% invested for? And I know you've said a 20, 30 years, a long-term thing, but what is my actual?
Your piece could be, it's a 2 months to go, 2 month and go. Give us
okay.
2 months, you can leave at any time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And whatever capital I've built over that time or equity I've built on top of that over time, I can actually cash that out.
Yeah. We've actually patented two interesting components of this. The one is that if my circumstance changes, I can move up to a bigger unit. I can move down to a smaller unit. I can move to another building that's in the key ecosystem. And eventually, as we scale, I'll be able to move to another city in a key building.
What if I want to put down, stay in the same unit, but put down more equity?
Yeah, so that's the other part of our patent that we patented, which is that the money that you put in is actually provides a reduction in the monthly payment. So it's perfect for a realtor who, let's say, puts $15,000 down on a small apartment and gets a big, whopping great commission check and puts it into key. So number one is now they have a bigger amount of money that is going with equity in that equity position with the market, providing the market's going up, that bigger piece is now going up. But every dollar that you put in, you get a small decrease in monthly payment. So as you put more money in, you actually lower your monthly payment. So this is a kind of a remarkable thing. It doesn't really exist in the marketplace anywhere. And so, this all goes back to where's the puck going? And if you think about this, really,
he knows I'm a hockey fan, eh?
Yeah. What you notice is that if you live in a global city where prices are out of control, where incomes are not pacing with price increases, then there's going to be someone who's going to come and say, I have a better solution. And so as a realtor, I say to them, you need to know what these solutions are. And I did have a conversation with an agent who said, I would never do this because my business is all repeat and referral. And I said, yeah, I totally get that. But you have to understand that where the puck is going so that you can talk to it with authority. And literally about 2 weeks later, he was like, oh, you know what? I was at a bar and these two girls were talking about the fact they'll never be able to own. They'll never be able to save enough as a deposit. And I just leaned over and said, hey, I might have a great solution for you. Let's talk offline. So, hey, that's what it's all about. And so, if it takes 20 years to save up for a deposit in Toronto to get 20%, let's say, we can actually get you into the market much sooner. And so that's really the basics of it.
What if I don't want to move in?
Yeah, so you can actually be a passive investor too. And this is, again, a really cool thing because I've dealt, and I have been one of those people that has sold units to investors, new condo construction. And there was a time, let's call it 15 years ago, when I could sell a unit to somebody, and once it was built, the rent would cover the mortgage, the insurance, the maintenance fees, and you'd maybe be ahead a couple of $100, which was like fantastic. And then when it came down to like a zero, where you wouldn't have anything, and that was still okay because the market was going up, and so if the condo was appreciating, that I would still be okay. And then it got to you're down $200 or $300, still okay as long as the condo is going up more than $2,400 a year. I'm golden. But now what's the difference? It's like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month. It's a big chunk, and so now you eliminate a lot of people. And what we know about condos is that when a condo is being sold, 70 to 80% of the units that are being purchased in most locations, not everywhere, are investors, whether they're foreign or domestic. And so, imagine so we're not there yet, but our game plan is to build our own units, our own buildings at some point. So imagine, two buildings side by side where one of them is, 70 to 80% tenanted and the other one is 100% owner occupied because everyone that lives there is an owner resident. That's something that hasn't happened. And so there is that pride of it. And I think the other part is that, what we're trying to create is through the back end and through the technology component of this, is something that we call housing as a service. Could we actually create an ability for the residents to understand, where their equity is on a regular basis, to open up their phone and go, hey, my 15,000 is now worth 17,000, and do that on a monthly basis or bi-weekly basis.
That's powerful. That's powerful, right?
Could you order a dog walker because you're staying out late with your friends and you've got a dog at home? Could you change the lighting in your apartment? Could you, have a cleaning lady or a cleaning service come in? Could you have a wall painted, or could you book repairs? All that sort of stuff on your phone, but be able to also say, hey, my monthly payment is $2,000 a month. What would happen to my equity position in 3 to 4 years if I paid an extra $50 a month? And I could just slide that little juice bar up a little bit and see where I would be. This is really powerful. And, again, there's nothing that is like that. So we're spending a ton of time with our development team and user experience and onboarding and, being able to pick a unit right from the computer, see what the views are, check out the layout, know what it's going to cost you, know what, if you put a little bit more into it, how much you would get. And what I say to agents is that this is really, I think our model works perfectly for someone who comes in for 3 to 5 years. So imagine you're now that agent who says, look, you can't afford to buy anything. You're new to the country. You're a gig worker. You don't have the capability, even though you'd have a deposit, you're going to pay, big mortgages. So your only opportunity is to rent. Or let me show you a product where you can go in, where your equity will build, the equity that you have will build over time, so that in 3 to 4 years from now, we'll be able to actually get you into something that you'll have full ownership of and be able to benefit from this. So we're not trying to disrupt homeownership. We're trying to disrupt the rental market by getting people on that ladder very, very quickly, help them build equity much, much faster, so that when they do take it to another level, they can, then buy their own place.
So when I look at this and I say to myself, I'm going to put in, 2.5%, whatever that be, on the price of that particular unit, I am now paying a monthly mortgage,
you're paying a monthly payment. Yeah, a monthly payment.
What portion of that payment am I paying? 2.5 or 100?
So you're going to pay what it would cost a normal person who owns a condo. So
the price of the condo is X. I've only got 2.5% equity, yet the cost to me on the monthly payment will be what the price of a condo would be. How do we calculate how much is down on that per se?
Yeah. So the best way to describe it is that what you're paying on a monthly basis is geared to market rent. So if that unit that you want. So I actually we just did a unit where
it's a valid question though, right? Help people understand the math behind this.
So let me tell you, we want to build our own buildings, but in the meantime, even if we dug a hole in the ground tomorrow, it's 5 years before we deliver.
Yeah.
So our backup plan, or our sort of plan to get there, is to buy units that are in the city right now that we can deliver to our consumers that want them right away. By the way, we have 120 people that have actually given us deposits for these units right now. So we actually had a woman who is in a building that we think is going to be a great building. She's an owner, and she says, you know what? If I'd known this, I probably wouldn't have bought because I would much rather do way more things with my money. But I don't want to get out of my unit. So what we're saying is, hey, we'll buy your unit from you, and then you can keep living there and just pay the monthly fee. And you can reduce your ownership stake from whatever she's at, 15 or 20%, down to 2.5%. So she was paying, I think, $1,930 a month on her mortgage. And then she was paying maintenance fees and taxes. With our system, she is going to cash out by, she wants to just leave her minimum in. So she's going to cash out around 17%, something like that. And her monthly payment is only going to go up to $1,970, but it's going to include the maintenance fee and taxes.
Okay.
So ahead. So as I said, the beautiful thing about owning is that you leverage that debt to increase your value. And if you buy a $500,000 condo, you put $100,000 down and it doubles in 5 years, you pay that $100,000, you've now got a lot more money, right? So in an under model, it's only the 2.5 or whatever you're putting. The 2.5 is a minimum, so it's whatever that is going up. So, but your monthly payment is as if you were
market value,
market
gotcha.
rent,
market rent, because again, the mortgage
is lower, right? It's a bit lower because you've got some equity stake in that. So it's not like you're paying double, triple, and that's how rent to own works. Rent to own says, on that $2,000 unit, you'll rent it for $2,000. The rent is $2,000, but you're going to pay us $2,250 every month, and we're going to take that $250 and we're going to put it in the kitty. And when you get to X, you can buy the unit off of us, right? But they're counting on the fact that there's transaction fees. They're counting on the fact that you're not going to close because we live in such a transient world. How can you say where you're going to be? Are you going to be there in 5 years? Because they're counting on the fact that you're not going to be there.
Who is your target market right now for all of this?
So, for the most part, it's millennials, and those are the people that are buying. These are the people that are really struggling to get into the market to get their first foot on that property ladder. So these are people who, are entering the job market. They have some money, but not a lot. They're new immigrants. They're gig workers. That's one group. The other group is parents who are buying for their kids. So I bought 2 units for my kids because, as much as I love them, I don't want them to live with me forever. So, but what I can do now is I can say, here's $1,000, here's $1,000. I'm going to invest in Key, and that money's going up. And then every time I have a little bit of extra cash, I'm going to put it in until they get to that 2.5 ownership, and then they can decide whether or not they want to live there or not, and they can sort of convert that to their pick a unit that they want to live in. I'm also getting people who are investors. That's the other part.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Sorry, before this slips my mind, I apologize on this one. When it comes to the investor, the person who is putting down the initial down payment or equity portion, are they covering the monthly, or is it the person who's going to come in as the tenant?
It's a great question. So as I said earlier, if you're living in a Key building, 100% of the people there that are owner residents. So you can't buy a unit and rent it out. What you do is you'd put a minimum, $500 is the minimum, but you can put 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. You put it into Key, it goes into the common kitty that we use to go buy other units. So you'll own a share of that.
Got it. Okay, cool. So you're not actually paying this monthly fee at this point.
You're not paying anything. You're just putting that money in and you're getting a dividend because you're getting the same terms and conditions that we're giving pension funds, wealth sovereign funds, insurance companies, endowment funds of the world.
And that stuff's not locked in for any period of time.
No, you'd be in a month and you say, no, I'm out, and we'll give it back to you.
Cool. Sorry, I cut you off there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So, millennials, parents, investors, and also downsizers. And again, it's a smaller market, and just kind of accidentally, we found that some people were saying, I'm going to sell my big house. I want to have my own place, but I want to utilize my money to go buy a cottage or buy a place down south. So with this, it allows them to kind of lock in, and they don't have to put 2.5. Maybe they'll put 20 or 30% down, and then they'll lock in, and they know that money is going up because it feels like a rental. They can leave anytime, but they can utilize their capital to buy a cottage or something, and maybe call that the principal residence and receive the benefit from that.
How do I know my money's safe?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and quite frankly, what we're building is this Key is actually sort of two entities. One is the real estate holding company, and that's what you're investing in. So, if the market goes down, yes, your little piece goes down. But if we go bankrupt, because the other part of it is the management company that's running the whole show. So if we go bankrupt, this is not touched by it. You still own the real estate. So I think that it's a very, very secure measure. And we're putting a lot of things in place, like being able to justify, what the prices are, keeping very, very transparent about how we approach that. And we've had tons and tons of discussion over that because we want to give people a sense that they are secure. And quite frankly, the other pillar of our business, there are really 2 other really interesting pillars. One is this idea that, when a condo is built, it's built for an investor for the most part. There's no real incentive for the developer to do things that would actually elongate the life of the building. So, or lower expenses, because why should they? If I'm out in a year, why would I put a $5 LED light bulb in that's going to last 10 years versus a 50-cent incandescent that's only going to last a year? Like, who cares, right? I'm out. So what do I care? So there's no incentive to do that. There's no incentive to put green roofs in, to put sensors in, to put geothermal in, to put wind in, to put triple pane glass in, to do any of those sort of things. Why would I put a sensor to monitor electrical use or water use in a building that I'm out in a year, right? Because those things are expensive. And I actually equate this to the fact that, when I go and buy something, a part of my decision is when I buy a car, how energy efficient is it? Not that I buy a car, I'm happy with my Defender, but how energy efficient is it? Is it electric? Can I just charge it at my house? When I go shopping, do they have, green paper bags, or do they have plastic? Are they recycling? How is, is like the food that I eat, is it locally grown? Like, I want to make those decisions based on that. But I don't have that choice when I buy a condo. Here's the condo: marble hallways, marble this, marble that, stainless steel appliances, and pot lights. And I can't go to the developer and say, yeah, I really like this, but are you using any technology that's capturing heat loss from wastewater?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using a gray water system to water the plants? Like, none of that stuff, because the developer's not going to do it. It's too expensive to do. So we can actually do that. So that's one of the.
Is that part of the plans there?
Yeah, when we build our own buildings, it definitely is, because when we're buying the buildings from the developer, we're actually getting them at a slight discount. Because if you think about how much money goes into the carrying costs, the commissions, the legals, all that sort of stuff, we're eliminating all that because we're one buyer, right? We walk in and say, hey, we'll buy the whole thing off of you. And it's a done very, very quick process. And so they're willing to give us, and we've engaged with the companies that have said, yeah, I'll sell you all my stuff. Because they can build it way faster. They can move on to the next project. They'll pass along a big savings to us. We'll utilize a lot of that savings into building energy efficiencies and reduce the maintenance fees and all that, which we think we can actually reduce by as much as 30%. So, huge. Plus lower the cost of the building to begin with.
So, yeah, go ahead.
And then I would say the other, before I move on, but the other kind of idea is that, because we own for the life of the building, we own that. So it's really worth our energy to make sure that what we're doing is delivering a better experience. And then finally, the last kind of pillar is this idea that, what we're building is vertical neighborhoods. And so, being engaged with the person who's living there, having not just a concierge, but a community manager who's booking events, who's doing lunch and learns, who's doing wine tasting, who's doing barbecues, who's organizing, things like farmers markets in the lobby. Like, imagine coming home and there's a farmers market in your lobby. Like, how cool is that? And being able to do that. And what we say is, look, you're always invited. You're never obligated. But you come home late and you say, damn it, I don't want to cook. Oh, there's a barbecue going on the roof. Our old offices was at Spaces before the pandemic. And they had in the elevator this little note of all the things that were happening throughout the month. There was a lunch and learn. There was something going on always. And there was this real engagement within the building. And Rob, who's one of our co-founders, he said, and he's living in a condo right now through a pandemic. There are a lot of things that are happening in the building that are there to help the people who are living in the building, but you have to take the elevator and go down and read them. Imagine if you could just do that on your app. You could sort of stuff on the app. Order services.
No, it sounds, it sounds all very, very cool stuff. And I think you bring up a great point for the folks that need to be downtown, need to be in the city, our frontliners, folks that are, working to keep a lot of our other services moving. It's important that the travel and the commute is not overly extensive. And of course, nobody wants to predict having another pandemic or a second wave or any of that other stuff, another lockdown. But there's certainly a lot to be said as well about the sort of vertical community and having the the reach to a lot of this stuff, these resources and services and camaraderie that I know, even from friends of ours who may still be living, on their own. It's a lonely time for a little while there, right? So that's a great point you bring up. So what I'm curious then is, if I decided that I wanted to invest in some real estate, and I think to myself, but I'm not going to move into that real estate, and I really don't want to have the big overhead of the mortgage payment, because I really can't afford to take on the extra mortgage payment, but I'd love to invest. And I'd love to do it in a way where, and I'm kind of playing off the example you gave about the kids. I've got 2 kids, and I want to put, X down for one, I want to put X down for the other, and I want them in 10, 15 years to be able to basically go, I want to cash out, or, you know what, Dad, I want to go move down into my condo.
Yeah.
Is this that thing? Because I know for us, as we were growing up, it was one of those things of like, and I didn't have that personally, but we know people that do, where, mom and dad would buy a condo for them. And as they got older, it was like, well, yeah, you got the condo downtown if you want to just go move into that.
Yeah.
Is this the same type of setup right here, Mark?
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. And so I equate it. And so there's another component that will exist once we build our own units, our own buildings. And this is the kind of idea of having, being able to do short-term rentals out of it. And what we know, like this is a sort of a very touchy kind of market right now because of, what's happening with Airbnb. But if you imagine all the problems that exist with Airbnb, they exist because one night stay minimums, no one's checking in on them. You're picking up a key around the corner in a lockbox. There's no concierges. They're not properly ID'd. There's a lot of kind of bad things. But if you embrace the model really well, then you can actually, really work from it. So the example that I give is, I have 2 kids, and they're going to get to that point where they'll be able to buy a unit in this program. And so my son Oliver, he'll work downtown, and he might decide to get a roommate, and his roommate's paying him $1,500 a month, and he's taking let's say 500 of that, and he's putting it into Key every month. So what happens? He's adding about 6,000 just as a base, which could be going up every year. But he's also, every time he does that, he's lowering his monthly payment. Mm-hmm. So that's a great thing for him. My daughter, on the other hand, she might say, you know what, I just want a 1-bedroom because I'm going to travel a lot. And so every time she goes, she lets the community manager know that she's leaving. The unit goes out on Airbnb. We go in, we clean it, we welcome the guest, we government ID them, we make sure that their experience is really good. And then when they leave, we go back and we clean the apartment up and we return it to my daughter, and she finds that her account has been topped up. She can take that money out at any time. Cool. So it's a really, kind of create that ecosystem. And there's an economic flywheel that exists in our model, which says, we'll make money off the management. We'll make money off the Airbnb component. We'll make money off of providing services like dog walkers and pet sitters and, all those things that people want, whether it's, food delivery, laundry pickup, food drop off, painting, cleaning, all those sort of things that'll create that economic flywheel that exists within our model.
Very cool stuff, man. It's very interesting, and I wish you guys nothing but the absolute best with it. We're beyond the top of the hour, but I would say, is there anything that we didn't cover about this new venture you're on that maybe you wanted to share out there? Do you think we really covered the basis, and maybe it's the next step is for people to get in touch?
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Okay, I would just add 2 kind of really interesting things. Number one is that last month we were chosen as one of the top 20 in the Canadian technology Canadian Innovative Technology Exchange, CIX they call it. We were one of the top 20. We got to present to the group online, and we were actually the crowd favorite.
Congratulations.
That's cool. But I would say the other thing is that the National Association of Realtors, through their Second Century Ventures, which is one of the largest venture capital companies, basically in the world, they spend a lot of time looking for solutions for realtors to help them build their business, whether it's through CRMs or through research or whatever. They've actually invested in us through their REACH program. And this is really, although we're probably not the first one, but what it's saying to them is, look at, the realtor is super important to us, and we should be building tools and investing in tools that will help the realtor make more money. But we should also be looking at what the problems are. And the problems are that more and more people are being locked out of home ownership. So how can we address that? And how can we use the realtor to do that? So there is that, which is really super exciting.
That's very cool.
And we have a referral program in place. So you bring us somebody, and our referral is $1,250, which is what you would get if you were renting somebody, right? The great thing is that, and what I'm looking at now, and
I wonder how that works for a podcast.
I want to make it as easy as possible. But what it does is, and I've actually had agents who said, I don't even want the money. I want to be a passive investor. Put my money into a passive investor position. Because, if by the end of the year, we're just pick a number, $100 million company, in 5 years, we're $1 billion company. Where does that take you? Right. And so I think agents also have to think about, again, talking about that long term. Where am I going to be 20 years from now, 10 years from now? How am I going to put money aside? How am I going to do that? And so you can put money aside at $500 a month. So imagine somebody who just referred us 10 deals. And it's like, basically, it's like you say to your consumer, you can't buy. I can put you into a rental and we can go out and look at 10 places and you'll pick one. Or you can talk to Mark about Key. I don't even have to leave my chair. and we'll have a conversation when the units will be delivering units probably within the next 60 days. We're actually about 45 days away from our first unit. But we'll be able to do all that work. You'll never have to even get out of your chair. And if you deliver 10 of those people to us, $12,500 without having to do anything.
Beautiful. Okay, so everybody, my contact information is available everywhere. If you got to talk to Mark, you come to me first. Mark, what last words or tips can you share with our audience here? Everybody that's tuned in, both live, both on our audio, on our podcast that's available, everybody. What can you share with anybody to help them get out there and just build more mind share and really take their business next level? Just sort of some parting words today.
Yeah, so I think it really behooves us to understand kind of like the big picture, where things are going, to adapt our business models to accept those new things, and be able to stay educated, obviously, and look for opportunities to build those partnerships, because that's gonna carry you across the goal line in the end.
Love it, man. Where can people find you?
Mark@keyliving.com. Super easy. I'm also on Instagram, as you know, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok now, and LinkedIn, obviously. Just type my name, and I pop up everywhere because I seem to have had a bit of a history. So.
Very awesome, man. We're about to open up the VIP room for as we end our live broadcast. But Mark, thank you very much. I'm very excited for you guys. I wish you guys nothing but success as you move ahead. And I want to thank you very much for joining the Mindshare podcast today.
Yeah, that was super awesome. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the 7 Ways to Communicate ebook to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, just get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call. We'll learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how I will help you do just that. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.